The presidential race looks jar-lid tight. We could be in for a long night as voters decide whether Vice President Al Gore or Texas Governor George Bush will be the next president of the United States. It is that close.
I was in Austin on election night in 2000, and we just didn't know what was being thrown at us.
CNN announces that we call Florida in the Al Gore column.
In blue, the important pivotal state of Florida to Vice President Al Gore.
Bulletin, Florida pulled back into the undecided column.
All we could see was that this was the screwiest election imaginable.
This thing is so wild, wacky, and woolly, nobody knows how it's going to come out.
With Florida being announced for Al Gore, taken out of the Gore column.
CNN right now is moving Florida to the too close to call column.
Too close to call.
Florida is now too close to call. I want to say that again. It's a confusing situation. Now, if you're disgusted with us, frankly, I don't blame you.
The whole election being called for Bush prematurely and then being uncalled for Bush.
CBS News has now, for the second time tonight, pulled back Florida.
So we take Florida away from George W. Bush.
We don't entirely trust all the information.
Quite honestly, we now don't know what to make of Florida.
Al Gore's concession and then his retraction of his concession.
Put me on. Gore has retracted his concession.
Too close at this point to make a concession speech.
He called to say, look, we think it's too close. I'm going to retract that concession.
And finally, there's complete confusion at the end of a very long night, and everybody just bewildered and thinking, what is going on?
Could we just review this again about how...
Well, I think in the fullness of time tonight, we're going to have an explanation for this.
We don't know what's going to happen tonight. We've been saying it all night long, and we've just proven it. Could you pass the crow?
We had the corruption of the media environment because the person who called the election for Bush was his own cousin, who was working for Fox News at the time, and then all the other networks unquestioningly followed Fox News rather than doing their own analysis.
Bush wins.
CNN declares that George Walker Bush has won.
George Bush is the president-elect of the United States.
ABC News is now going to project that Florida goes to Mr. Bush.
One of the closest elections in American history. Bush has won it.
You had all these other delicious wrinkles in the situation. The fact that the Republican candidate's brother was the governor of the state where all the controversy was going on.
Your brother said in one of his speeches, my brother said he's going to deliver Florida.
he did say that. He said it more than once.
Will you deliver it?
He also told me that it was going to be a cold Thanksgiving dinner if I don't help him out, and then we're going to carry it.
Catherine Harris, who was the Secretary of State, was doubling as co-chair of George Bush's election campaign.
Governor George W. Bush, 2,912,790.
So there were all these situations which, had they happened in some other emerging country from the former Soviet Union, the United States probably would have been front and center in denouncing these things as evidence of corruption. Suddenly it's happening in the world's most powerful country.
We are waiting now to what could be rather significant rulings in this race for the White House.
The Supreme Court intervened and stopped the counting at exactly the critical moment.
Just getting word from Associated Press that the U.S. Supreme Court has set aside the ruling on hand-counted votes in Florida.
Even though Al Gore won the popular vote, he lost in the one state that would make the difference between who would be president.
African Americans promised a payback at the polls. They delivered in record numbers. But on Election Day, thousands of their votes didn't count.
The Civil Rights Commission did a series of hearings on what happened in the election, long after Bush v. Gore was decided.
Harris faced an hour of intense questioning from the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights.
What standards do you provide? And let's start with the standards to be used in the recount.
I'm going to let Mr. Roberts address this legal question.
Thank you.
I thought Catherine Harris's description of her role was laughable, ha, ha, ha. We got almost uniformly from the poll workers and from the people who made the allegations that there was widespread disenfranchisement of various kinds. And we concluded, based on that and some statistical analysis, that African Americans were 10 times more likely to be denied the right to vote than whites were in that election.
Wake up! Wake up! Count the votes, baby! Don't be afraid!
The 2000 election illustrated that there was a real problem. The patient was sick. American democracy was not in a good way. The doctors came along and they really made the wrong diagnosis. They said the problem is the machines. If we have better machines, everything will be fine. So there was an almighty rush to believe that computers were the solution.